Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
A very good morning to one and all. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the one-day National Faculty Development Program organized by Department of Chemistry, Little Flower Degree College, Hyderabad. This is Rashmi Srinidhi, Head Department of Chemistry and Coordinator of the Faculty Development Program. I'm delighted to be your host for the day. I take this opportunity to welcome our principal, Reverend Brother Vincent Reddy, our vice principal, Ms. Jayanti Reddy ma'am, our guest speaker, Mr. Sanjay Upendram, and all academicians from across the country. The 20th century was a century of war and blood, but the 21st century is the century of dialogue. Quote by Dalai Lama. Friends, it is an undisputed fact that the 20th century, that is the last 120 years, have been unprecedented scientific and technological growth, increasing world's GDP by more than 20 times. It is also certain that this has been made possible by human brain power, measured by the so-called IQ or intelligence quotient. However, it is also true that happiness and satisfaction levels have come down. Social scientists and psychologists have recognized this and questioned the dependence on IQ to solve all problems. So, what is the alternative? Or better still, what does the world need in addition to IQ? We need IQ for continued progress, and we need something else to help balance and strengthen our relationship, which can give us stable lifestyle. Friends, Little Flower Degree College, Department of Chemistry wants us to think about this aspect with our life and leadership coach, Mr. Sanjay Upendram, in this FDP. Now I would like to introduce our college to you. Little Flower Degree College, Uppal, is a Catholic minority institution established by the Mountfort Brothers of St. Gabriel. It was started in 2008 as a part of Little Flower Junior College, Hyderabad. It is our endeavor to move forward with the willing and active cooperation of everyone who is a partner in the blossoming and grooming of Little Flower. Now I request our technical support team, Mr. Vijay and Mr. Raman from the Department of Computer Science to give a virtual tour of our college.
Little Flower Degree College, Uppal, Hyderabad, a Montfortian institute run by the Brothers of St. Gabriel Educational Society, has been illuminating the world around with its motto, Lead to Illuminate. In its 12 years journey of excellence, LFDC has been fostering the young generation to be humane and preparing them to compete, realizing their dreams and purpose in life on the competitive global platform.
Good educational environment, discipline,
practical skills
helped me in getting my first job.
Excellent placement opportunities.
LFDC is an awesome college.
Dear parents and students, Little Flower Degree College, Uppal, Hyderabad has begun its admissions for the academic year 2020 and 21. The online application for the 3-year degree in BA, BSc, BCom and BBA is now available on our website.
Little Flower College.
LFDC
Little Flower Degree College.
Thank you, sir. I invite my colleague, Mrs. Gomti, Head Department of Zoology, to introduce our eminent speaker of the day.
Thank you, Mrs. Rashmi. It's my pleasure to introduce today's resource person and eminent speaker, management consultant, Mr. Sanjay Upendram. He is co-founder and CEO, lead facilitator, forum moderator, leadership coach of Amarti Consulting. Mr. Sanjay graduated from Osmania University as an aspiring mechanical engineer. His master's is in industrial engineering from Texas A&M University. His MBA is in corporate strategy and management acquired from University of Michigan. His prior roles were as senior manager in Anderson Consulting and director, head of strategy and operations, Deloitte Consulting. Mr. Sanjay's management consulting practice is vast. To name a few, he was in advisory board for various Fortune 500 companies as CEO and CFO level for business excellence, corporate strategy, and operation strategy. His leadership development experiences include executive and team coach, facilitated several CEO meetings, and moderated over 700 workshops, and was lead facilitator for over 50 workshops of cultural exchange alumni of US Embassy. To add feathers to his cap, he is the panel member with CII, FICII, SIAM, etc., and received merit award from our late Prime Minister of India, Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, for developing the national manufacturing policy. Adding to his credit, Mr. Sanjay Upendram had authored and published over 20 papers in reputed management and business journals. He had facilitated workshops in 40 countries across the globe. Little Flower Degree College welcomes you, sir. Over to Mrs. Rashmi now.
Thank you, Mrs. Gomti. Before starting with our session, I request our participant to attend the session till end to get benefited by our eminent speaker and submit their question in the chat box, which will be handled after the talk. Now I invite Mr. Sanjay Upendram, leadership coach, to take over the session. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Rashmi ji and Gomti ji, for the wonderful opportunity and for the introduction. So today, it is my honor to be amongst academicians from across Hyderabad, which is my city, and I absolutely love it. And we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, which is all about emotional intelligence. So let me just bring up my PowerPoint here so that you can all see it. Are you all able to see the PowerPoint? You're all good?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's visible.
So if you can turn on your video cameras, that'll be great so that we can see you guys. It's okay. Don't worry. You might be at home. That's fine. But the goal is to get connected and have a good time learning about something which is very important. So to begin with, I think emotions are extremely critical in life. You see, there's a whole range of emotions that are present. And how do we use them? How do we actually work with them is what today's discussion is all about. So again, I've written it as key competence to succeed in life. But I also have a few areas of focus on academicians and students, and how do we really, as teachers and passionate teachers, how do we take it to the next level in terms of connecting with all our students and bring the best out of them while we bring the best in ourselves as well. Okay, so I'm just going to start out with one quick quote here. This is, life is 5% what happens to you and 95% how you respond to it. Okay, let's just pause it and keep it there and come back to this over our entire presentation. A couple of times we will be coming back to this particular aspect of what did I really mean by this and how does it impact each one of us. Okay, so this is broadly the agenda which you have seen. So I'm just going to dive directly into emotional intelligence, but starting out with a few anecdotes or a few situations that all of you might have faced or seen. Majority of the New Year resolutions are never followed through. How come? Right? How come MS Dhoni led the Indian cricket team while far better cricketers than him were in the team? You had Tendulkar, you had Dravid, you had Kumble, and you had all these wonderful players. But how come MS Dhoni, a kid out of the block, was the leader and the captain of the team and he did so well? A very successful and wealthy business person commits serious corporate fraud. Right? Having all the money in life, but still, how come fraud was committed by him and his company? And we see this over and over again in our day-to-day life. What do you think is the leading cause of deaths in the world? And you might have a few guesses, but it's not what you might be thinking. And we'll come back to this in a short while. How come students who are prepared well for exams suddenly tend to forget and blank out in examination halls? They go well prepared, and then suddenly in the examination hall, you find that they're not doing well. So what's the deal there? Do top rankers from school automatically succeed in life? And when I say succeed, it's not just about money and material, but holistic success, from happiness, from ability to connect with people. Does it mean that if you're good in studies, you automatically succeed in life? And on the other flip side, if students do not do well in school, does it mean that they are failures in life, right? Because these are conditionings that we generally tend to have in our school. And how does this impact a child? And then one for all teachers and academicians here, what do you think are the top 2 characters of academicians who are popular with students, right? And who are those popular academicians? We'll come back to that in a short while as well. So just let's start thinking about some of these things and then come back to how it impacts all of us. Okay. So how much do you think academic training and technical training contribute to professional success? Right? So we go to school, we go to college, we'll go to higher education, we get all these wonderful degrees, but is that good enough? Right? And on a scale of 0 to 100, how much does academic education actually, contribute to the overall success? So there's a lot of research, and I've been doing this research for the last 15 years now, and I've been a big practitioner. You find that academic education is only 10 to 15% of our overall success in life. Even on this call, we have many people who are not necessarily done well in school, but seem to be doing quite well in outside life. I'm a big example. I literally was never good at studies. I was average to okay, but somewhere it clicked, and that made all the difference. And that's the story that I will also share as we go through. So you find that academic training is only 10 to 15% of your overall success, and as you start going in different organizations, be it in college, in schools, in businesses, in life, you'll find that the difference is emotional intelligence or emotional quotient as we are talking, right? So we will get into the definition of what emotional intelligence is, but just to give you a pictorial representation, IQ and EQ is something like this, right? IQ is what you can see, all the academic education, the science, the math, the analysis, the synthesis. But what really determines your real success is the iceberg, which is sitting below the surface, which is huge, which is impacting your day-to-day life. That's your EQ. So just a quick note on the definition. IQ is your intelligent quotient, which is how do you put things together, how do you analyze, how do you synthesize, right? And then the worldly knowledge. EQ, on the other hand, is how do you understand your emotions, how do you actually deal with those emotions, and how do you understand other people's emotions and work with them in a productive way. That is EQ. All right, so just moving on, and some of the best work of emotional intelligence is done by Daniel Goleman. And Daniel Goleman basically has co-authored at least about 4 to 5 books on this very subject. And one of his most famous book is Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. And I would highly recommend all of us to take a chance to look at it, thumb through it, and really go through it as well. Okay? So let's take a pause here and say, let's first understand, now, does it really make sense that 85 to 90% of who we are is driven by something that I do not even learn in school? Is that right? So let's just understand our brain. So we have 4 brains. Our first brain is basically your reptilian brain. It starts here, goes all the way down your spinal cord, right? And the reptilian brain is all about your survival skill, right? It is your, how do you actually survive and progress to the next generation? It's all your heart beating, your eyes closing, your bio clock. So that's the first brain that evolved, and we all evolved from reptiles, right? The second brain is your limbic system, your emotional brain, sitting here. And the part of the emotional brain is all about how do you take emotions, how do you work with emotions, and how do you work with them productively, right? And then baby of the brains is your thinking brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. Starting here, goes around, right? So you have the thinking brain and the emotional brain. And now the fourth brain, I don't know if any of you might guess where the fourth brain is, but you'd be surprised that the fourth brain is actually in your gut. It's in your stomach, because you have a lot of neurons all along your stomach and gut, which actually are sending signals to your thinking brain and your emotional brain, and constantly in touch. So generally you find that if you're emotionally challenged, you also typically have gut issues, right? And that's the reason the gut health is extremely critical. Okay, coming back to our brains. So I talked about the thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex. and then the emotional brain. The communication within the brain occurs through what is known as neurons. So you have these neurons through neurotransmitters, they are firing away electrical impulses, right? And in the brain, you have the thinking brain and the emotional brain. In the thinking brain, you have about 100 neuron stimulations per second. But do you know how many neuron stimulations are there in the emotional brain per second? It is far higher than the thinking brain. If this is 100, in your emotional brain, you have almost 6 billion stimulations. So what essentially happens is your 6 billion emotional neurons literally take over your thinking brain and suspend all rational thought. So when you're in that state, you're known to be in an emotional hijack situation. A lot of us do get into an emotional hijack. And when we're in an emotional hijack situation, are we able to think? Definitely not, because we have been taken over by the emotional brain. And how do you calm yourself? How do you, respond to that situation is extremely critical. And that's something that we will talk in the second half. Okay. So if you really look at it, the other thing which I also want to talk about is the thinking brain and the emotional brain. The relationship between the two is like when you go to a circus, you have the lion. Lion is like your emotional brain. It could go wild, but you still need the thinking brain to work productively with the emotional brain to ensure that it is in check, and then you are working with it. So that's exactly what this slide depicts here. Okay, the slides are more talking points for us to go through. All right. So as we continue, I'll come back to the second statement. Do not learn how to react, but to respond, right? React and respond. What is react and what is respond, right? And this is something that I started out saying, life is 5% what happens to us and 95% how we respond to it. So I'll just continue to unpeel the onion in terms of what I mean here. Okay, so if you look at it, our brain has been evolving from millions of years. So we are not who we are just because we are born to our parents, recently, right? There is the emotional imprint and a memory imprint sitting within us based on our millions of years of survival. And each emotion is nothing but a packet of information which is saying, hey, if I'm angry, it means to say that, I need to do something else. If I'm sad, it means that, I need to shut down my system. If I am scared, it means a different part of my body is activated to ensure that I survive, right? So that is how emotions have been, have derived, and they show up on our body at different parts and in different locations. And that is what is known as every emotion has a biological signature. Just to give you a quick example, if you're stressed, for some people, it might show at the neck. For me, sometimes I feel a little dry mouthed. I might feel a little, butterflies in the stomach. This is because your emotions have triggered off a hormonal reaction, which actually impacts your body. And are you listening to your body is the question. And that is what emotionally intelligent people do. Okay, so if you look at it, there are different emotions. We all like to see baby pictures, right? So this is about surprise. You see this whole range of emotions that are there, right? Sad, happiness, anger, surprise, right? Grit, anger. And if you really go back to what the emotions are, the basic emotions are only about 5 to 7. And you have a range of them based on the intensity and based on, the type of emotion, that is given. So it could be anger, it could be bitter, mad, furious, violated. So you have a range of based on how intense that emotion is. And it's a different category of that. Okay. Now, as I was mentioning, the emotions are impacting our body. It is impacting and it shows up in different parts of the body. When you're angry, you'll find that all the way from your head, all the way to your hand and your chest, you'll find that. If you're in fear, you might find it in different parts. If you're in happiness, you'll find it all through your body. Sometimes where you get this happiness pangs and you cannot control yourself. You want to dance, you want to jump. That's because your emotions are impacting your decisions subconsciously. Okay? But knowing what your body is telling you and being aware of it is what is extremely critical. Okay. And not taking of emotions actually impact our body. So if you're extremely stressed, right, you might feel it, you might feel a neck pain, you might feel hunger, and you might start eating more. Why is that? That's because you're releasing hormones. When you're stressed, for example, you release a hormone known as cortisol. And the cortisol is all about fight or flight, and then you're getting ready for action, right? And to calm yourself down, you might pick up a chocolate or an ice cream and give yourself a dopamine release and start eating that and calm yourself down. So different emotions impact different parts of your body. So sometimes if you're stressed, guess what? A lot of people start having back pain or pain in the lumbar region all along your spine, because your spine is, again, like I said, it's your primal mind, and it's impacting, the emotions are impacting that part of your body. Okay, so this is again just to show you that it is impacting different parts. For example, if somebody is stressed, you would also hear that they are increased psoriasis. Psoriasis is a skin rash. Why? Because at that time, because you're stressed, you release hormones, and then your immunity reduces. And once your immunity reduces, skin is your first contact with your viruses or bacteria, and they start attacking and taking you down, right? Okay, now, how do you actually make sense of emotional intelligence? So there are different components for emotional intelligence, if you really look at it. And this is the Daniel Goleman definition. And this is something that Rashmi ji also sent on our WhatsApp chat, right? So first is self-awareness. Do you know about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, what drives your goals, etc. Second, self-regulation. I know about myself, but am I able to regulate my emotions? If I get angry, how am I reacting or responding? If I am scared, what am I doing? If I am sad, what am I doing? Third one is motivation, right? At the end, each one of us are a product of motivation. Since we are motivated to get the first rank, since we are motivated to win that medal, since we are motivated to go back and write an exam to get better marks, or since we are motivated, we are able to do much better in life and happier in life. So again, motivation deep from within, right? Empathy. How am I connecting with my fellow, presenter, with my staff, with my students, with my staff, anybody who's working for me. Today, I think all of us in the COVID times, we all would have learned empathy, right? When our maids and house help did not come, for the first time I said, wow, you know what? I did not realize how much effort they were putting and really helping us. That is empathy. And again, empathy, saying, asking them, listening to them, and connecting with them, right? And then, of course, the last thing is the social skills. How do you connect with people? This is what sometimes people also call street smart, right? Are you able to work well with others in a team, right? Just because you're smart, you have high IQ, does it mean that you automatically have social skills? That's something that we need to talk about as well. Okay, so those are your top, 5 big buckets of emotional intelligence, which we will talk about. But the more important thing is, even when you look at in the last 35 to 40 years, there's been increased access to neuroscience and research, right? And with the supercomputers, a lot of research is going on in the brain, and I will share that with you in the second half. And what they have found is increasingly people with higher EQ have higher chances for success. For example, this is done by UC Berkeley over 40 years, right? They found that EQ was 4 times more powerful than IQ in predicting success in their field. Similarly, for manager, PepsiCo, they found that people who are well-developed managers have higher emotional intelligence skills versus those who are not developed as, good managers. Same thing, this is again worldwide. They found that majority of the competencies that they are looking for when they are hiring is emotional intelligence competence, right? And emotional intelligence competence is, how is this person? Is he able to motivate himself? Is he able to connect well with other people? Does he understand the students? Does he understand the fellow teachers? Does he understand, what is required and really bring it to bear? It's not just about problem-solving skills. It's about ability to connect with people. That is what we are looking for. And then, of course, this continues to build on what we have talked about. Again, a very interesting slide. People associate strategy and rational thinking with high-level functions of the prefrontal cortex, because we think if you have big prefrontal cortex, the IQ, you are good strategically. But research has increasingly shown that strategic thinkers have increased activation in their intuition and their emotions. So they have much higher developed emotions and intuition. And that is really what drives people's success as well. Okay. How do I actually invoke? Let's say there's something happening, right? Somebody came up with the wrong news or a bad news. And again, this is neuroscience research that has shown that if you just pause for a few milliseconds, the quality of your decision improves tenfold or 80-fold, right? And that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? Postponing the onset of decision process by as little as 50 to 100 milliseconds enables the brain to focus on the relevant information and block out irrelevant information. That's the reason when you're emotionally challenged, or when you're hijacked by your emotional brain, even our parents, our elders have said, calm down, sleep over it, let's think, let's see what we want to do. And we'll continue to build on what are some of the things that you can do as teachers, as human beings, to control and pause yourself and be mindful of what's happening in your brain. Okay? And again, 88% of award-winning outcomes begin when an employee paused and focused on asking the right question. Again, connecting and asking, having those authentic dialogue, right? Rather than just reacting and saying, hey, this is the answer. Saying, okay, I understand your perspective. It's different from mine. Let me understand what you're trying to say. And then pausing it. That's another important thing. Okay? So that's where, this is the wonderful saying, hire for attitude, but train for aptitude, which I have followed, pretty much. Initially, I was looking at, the resumes of people, saying, okay, how is the resume of the person? But then, yeah, resume is important. But what is more important is having this behavioral interview and saying, tell me a situation where you were really in trouble and how did you deal with it? Talking about adversity, what were some of the things that you actually addressed? And I like another very interesting thing which is being done at some of the universities. They've asked people to write their failure resume. Most of the time we see the success resume. What all have you done and what have I achieved? But they're saying now, why don't you write your failure resume? What all have you failed in and what have you learned? Because that is the best teacher of how you have, what attitude you have and how you're able to actually work for it. Okay? All right. So with that, I'm just going to pause here and we can take a few questions, and then we can take a few questions for about 5-7 minutes or so, and then continue our discussion as we go through. Any questions, or I'm just going to pause here. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for such an interesting and informative session.
Yeah.
I really like the failure resume.
Yeah.
I'm sure the participants have benefited immensely. The first question is, how can EQ be developed?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So how can EQ be developed? So the thing here is, and we will be looking at a lot of that in the second half of it when we come into actually EQ development. But the main thing is being aware that emotions are important in life first. Second, once you know that emotions are important, how do you actually respond and work with them productively? 3, and there are certain techniques which I will share with you in a few minutes, but I will be coming to that, Rashmi ji, if you don't mind waiting for.
Yeah, no problem, sir.
Yeah.
Another question. The concept of failure resume is really novel, and they have really thanked. And then another, they have asked that, can robots be programmed with EQ?
Now we'll have to go to Rajnikant's movie, right? And then talk about, how the robots also start developing. The thing here is, yes, you can model emotions, but you can never replace a human being, right? Because human being is so complex. And recently I did a course from Yale on Buddhism and modern psychology. And in that you find that, the whole concept of having a mind is something that is very esoteric, right? And the second thing is, we do not even have control of our mind. We think we have control of our mind, but our mind is an aggregate of multiple different modules And there's no one seer who is actually, working on it. So yes, you can imitate it to a certain extent to perform some repetitive task and do a little bit more, but you can never replace it. So emotions, yes, you can. It's almost like if you feel this, this is what you do. If you do this, this is what you do. But human behavior is also very unpredictable, that you cannot necessarily do it in one single way, right? It's not linear. And so I would say that it can be done, but not to the extent of replicating a human being and replacing a human being.
There is another one, sir.
Yeah.
Ladies will face many emotional challenges in their personal life and professional life. In one of the participants' personal life, she has experienced a lot of tension all the time when the kids are small. How can she control that?
Yeah. So the thing here is, if you really look at it, and this is where I say, when people do keep asking the question of, are the emotions of women different from the emotions of men, right? So the thing here is, the brains are literally the same. But what differentiates a woman's brain from a men's brain is the conditioning. Over a period of time, what you've seen is the women go through far more emotional aspects right from, when they're young, when they're going through their own bodily changes and hormonal changes, to when they're interacting with people outside, right? So now the question here is, so that is one side bit which I wanted to share. But now on the specific question, Rashmi, that you mentioned about how can she deal with her child? Yes, there are multiple things. Life is not easy. There are multiple things that you have to prioritize and juggle, right? The question is, even with children, right? I also helped raise two daughters, right? One is a doctor and another one is doing an architecture. And it is not easy. I have lost my cool, right? But the more I learned about emotions, the more I recognize it, I start pausing. I start controlling myself. I start responding to the situation and listening to them. And by just allocating appropriate time, by being aware of my emotions and practicing responding to those emotions is what has helped me so far. And in this next session, we will talk more about how do you actually manage them.
And another one question. They are asking how to attract the students.
How to?
Attract the students.
How to attract? Okay. That's also coming. That's coming. But the clue is this. The moment you connect with your students at an emotional level, see, we all can connect at an intellectual level, right? Which is good, which is what as teachers we all have to do. But connecting with them at an emotional level is what is so critical. I'll just leave you with one good saying. There's a wonderful saying that, I've met, it is not what he or she said, but how she made me feel or how he made me feel. That is what creates the deepest memory and connection, right? So the emotional connect is what we need to talk about with students. And I will just share with you a couple of research findings on that so that, you understand it better. Okay?
Yes, sir. And let's go to the next session now.
Okay.
In which sir will be talking about how to deal with the application of emotion quotient in academicians' life and how can we improve it. Yeah. Over to Sanjay, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So let me just carry on. And those are very good questions. Some of them we will get a chance to address them as well. So now, how do you, knowing is, we say it's half the battle, but yes, it is. But when it comes to emotional intelligence, practicing it and really working with it is extremely critical. So let me just take you to that part of it. Okay, so I'm going to start out with a story here, right? This is one of the Buddhist story where one of these daughter, a daughter was starting to get very irritated. Right? Then the mother said, come, let me take you to the kitchen. Right? She took her to the kitchen. And in the kitchen, she had 3 boiling pots of water, right? All clear, boiling water. In one, she took a carrot. In the other one, she had an egg. In the third one, she had a coffee bean. So the carrot, before you put it into the boiling water, it's hard. After you putting after you put it into the boiling water, what happens to it? It becomes soft. The egg, which is very brittle to begin with, the moment you put it into the water, it hardens up. The coffee beans, which were hard to begin with, the moment you put it into the water, they might most likely dissolve, right? So the question here is, for the same 100 degrees of, let's say, boiling water, which is, in this case, the live situation, each person reacts differently to their environment, right? For the same, if there is fire, 5 people will have 5 different reactions based on how they're able to manage their emotions effectively and how they're able to work with them productively. So, going back to the first statement which I left, life is 5% what happens to you, the boiling water, 95% how you respond to it. Everybody is going to have adversities, by the way. But how you respond to that adversity by acknowledging the fact that there is an adversity, there is an opportunity to learn, there is an opportunity to reinvent myself, is what really matters. So if you really look at, I'm going to give you again the story which I talked about, but I'm going to talk about that in the context of Amy Purdue. Amy Purdue, this girl, absolutely brilliant person, she was doing really well, and suddenly, because of meningitis, one neurological disorder, she lost her legs. She cut both her legs. Both her legs had to be amputated. Now, she could have been very sad, angry, bitter, and say, no, the life was bad, blame everybody else. My parents didn't birth me right, or, somebody else is the problem. Or you can actually take charge of who you are in life. And this lady, Amy, actually said, you know what? No, I will not that limit. I'm going to take my adversity and transfer that into an opportunity. You know what? So she became a role model, literally like a braid runner, and she was one of the topmost, skiers with artificial legs. And in her category, she did extremely well to be a international champion, as well as she set up a foundation to take care of people and motivate people, who are in this situation. So the question here is, yeah, she could be sitting and cribbing and crying, or she can say, you know what, I'm just going to dust myself. Yes, I've been presented with a adversity and a bad situation, but I'm going to turn it into an opportunity. Another example, Nick. If you look at Nick, some of you might have seen his video, no legs, no hands. Now he can say, how do I even survive? Do I show pity on him? How do I actually work with him? Right? So in this particular, you see Nick absolutely smiling and being one of the topmost rated motivation speakers in the world. And he says, I live life to the fullest. I'm happy. And he's always smiling in the face of adversity. Because in his head, he said, yes, initially when he was born, he would have had these emotions of fear, anger, bitterness. But acknowledging them and saying, yes, I can succumb to them, or I can generate positive emotions of happiness, gratitude, that I'm still alive. I still can do something with what I am. Right? So you're reprogramming your negative emotions with your positive emotions. And that requires discipline. It's not easy, by the way. It's not easy. But that is the transition, that is the transformational journey that takes you to your next level. Right? So again, either you can be angry for what you don't have or be thankful for what you have. Again, gratitude, extremely critical. Right? So coming back to some of the questions which were asked. So when you are in a trying situation, there's a fire, your children are shouting, or there is, your students are misbehaving, or, your husband or your wife is shouting, whatever it is, or your employees are not listening to you, or you by yourself are stressed out. What do? This is the impulse control, right? First, pause. Remember, I said pause is a very important. First, pause. Calm down. Think before you act. Second, say the problem and how you feel. You say, okay, yes, I see that there is fire there. I am angry, or I am concerned for my children's safety, right? Second, set a positive goal. Now, what I need to do is I need to take whatever I can and ensure that my children are safe and whatever I can for my house. Then think of solutions. What do I do? What is the best thing that I can do? I can, at this time, if I let emotions take over, the emotional brain take over, I will not be able to think. So calm down. Think of the solutions. Okay, let me do this, 5 things. So you're quickly thinking, and this requires impulsive thinking. This requires an ability to respond in quickly. Think ahead of the consequences, and then finally, go ahead with the best plan. And you might not get 100% of that, but you will still be much better than if you just succumb to the negative emotions. Examples of this are all over. I could be a good student, I've studied, I've gone into the examination hall. The moment I go into the examination hall, I can start feeling very shaky or shivery. Now what's happening? Your emotional brain of nervousness, fear, stress has taken over your thinking brain, and I'm not able to think. So when people come to me like that for counseling, the first thing I say, guys, kids, just relax. Take a deep breath. It's not the end of the world, right? Your life is not dictated just by 1 or 2 success exams. It's a marathon. You will continue. You fail, you'll get one more exam, one more. You'll get one more opportunity. So calm down. Second, if you have an opportunity, calm yourself down through a pause or drink water. It always helps. And I'll come to that part in a second. Then tell yourself, re-engage your thinking brain, saying, okay, you know what, I know the emotions are high. Let me see how I can work and do the best I can. That really helps. In any trying situations, life is not about how you react, because reacting is a negative spiral of emotions going on. Versus responding. Responding is pausing, calming yourself down, connecting, understanding the situation, and this requires practice. Look at it. When you go to an emergency room in a hospital, they are trained time and again to work with patients who are on the stretcher, arm cut off, leg cut off, heart out, but the doctors, if they start panicking, they are not going to do a good job. So they have to calm down and they go through this. So that is the power of practice. That's the power of playing it in your head, visualizing, and then doing the best you can during that situation. So this is a very important technique. Now, that's the reason. There's a very beautiful saying here. Again, do not let the behavior of others destroy your inner peace. Somebody else could shout. If other people shout, I have an option to say, hey, he's shouting. I can shout back, and then it is just a negative spiral of nothingness. Versus, okay, he's shouting. Okay. Is everything okay? Do you want some water? Can we talk? Whenever you're ready to talk, I'm happy to talk with you. Walk away from there. Pause it. Sleep over it. That's the reason why, you should not let other people take over your emotions. One of the questions that we talked about earlier, why do you think MS Dhoni was successful as a captain? He was known as Captain Cool. The reason is because he stayed calm even in the most trying situation, right? Last over 30 runs, he could just take over, his emotions could take over and he could fail, or he could say, you know what, it's interesting. Now let me see what I can do. He has trained himself over the last 20 years of practice to respond to the situation with every ball that he will fail, a few times, but chances are he has a higher percentage and probability of success because he's calming himself down. He's aware of the situation and he's applying his best skill level to the situation or adversity. Okay, now I just want to move into academicians and talk about 2 very important aspects of it. Right. So, as academicians, right, how do we really perform well and connect with students? That was one of the questions. Right. So there are, Martin Seligman is one of the professors in Pennsylvania, and he came he's one of the fathers of positive psychology. I think identified over 3-4 years of research from the last 500 years of work done by various people, psychologists, anthropologists, and neuroscientists, and said, what are the human traits which are most critical, right? And they found these 24 strengths, character strengths, and you can go onto this website and actually do it. VIA strengths, character strengths. If you just say character strengths, you will get it. go do this instrument, right? It's not a test, it's just an instrument. So they found that these 24 are very core to our success, right? As human beings, the more you exhibit these things and work with them, not everybody will have all of them. I might have, for example, I might have 2-3 of them or 4-5 of them in the top. And then the more I work with understanding and, apply it to my job, I will become happier. The more I apply it to my personal life and family life, I would become that much more happier. Now, a question to you all. What do you think are characteristics of the most popular academicians? What do you think out of all these things? Again, you might not, you can put it in the chat if you want, but it was pretty surprising, because a lot of times, we might be assuming that it is, other aspects, but what was found was, I don't know if anybody put it in chat, but you found that zest and humor were the top 2 characteristics of academicians who were very popular. And popular is not just being one amongst the students, but connecting with them. Zest is your energy, you're showing that you really care. The zest is, living life to the fullest. And humor is using humor, interchangeably in your education. So do that. The one who tells the best stories, the one who connects with your students, these are the best teachers. Of course, you need academic, you need the rigor of academics, which is no doubt, but these are the top 2 characters. And I was surprised to find that these are the top 2 characters which are required. Okay, so I would highly recommend you to do this. It is on a site known as VIA Character Strengths. Just go there, Google it, and then you can do it. Okay, next one. As academicians, what are important characteristic strengths that we need to nurture in students? And if just quick thing, the reason I'm sharing this, you'll find that a lot of these are emotions. A lot of these are about connecting with people. A lot of these are not taught in school. A lot of these are life skills. A lot of these are something that we can nurture and we can continue to work on by being first understanding them and then ensuring that we work productively towards them. So if you look at it, for students, what do you think are some of the most important characteristics to be developed? And I've been working, of course, I've been a management consulting, helping companies on growth strategies and operations improvement. But in the last 10, 12 years, I've been a teacher and I love my job. And a teacher working with students, working with teachers, working with parents, and working with business people on their own leadership skills and their own journey and life skills. So I've become a teacher, but I learn the best when I'm curious. When I say, I do not know the answer, or you have a different answer, let me understand that. So one of the things which I would also like to recommend is, as teachers, are we providing that zest, right? Are we imparting grit, right? Grit is the ability to fall, when you fall down, like we saw in Amy or Nick, to get up and come back. Optimism, saying that there's something more beyond. And self-control, the ability to control your emotions, calm yourself down. Gratitude, very, very critical. Nowadays, I practice gratitude every day, right? What are the top 2 or 3 things that I can be thankful for every day? Okay, I'm thankful for right now that I'm able to connect with each one of you. 120 or 130 people right here. Social intelligence, the ability to work with people. And then curiosity, which I think is extremely critical. Again, if you think you know answers for everything as a teacher, then we have stopped learning. The ability to be curious and build that curiosity in kids, in our students, is very critical. So a combination of all these 7 characteristic strengths, and there's a lot of research, follows the Martin Seligman's research, and a lot of KIPP schools are actually following this all around the world to really develop these as a part of their curriculum. So you find a lot more of teaming projects, a lot more of, rather than just solving a math problem or a physics problem, it is much more learning by doing. For example, I'm on board of a company which is known as Butterfly Fields, where everything is about learning by doing. So rather than teaching a concept, they actually, do everything physically or, and then that's how they learn a lot better with zest and with, with curiosity. Okay, now just moving on. One more very important concept as teachers and as academicians is, and I'll let you read this, but also let me read it. The best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to the limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. So basically, this is from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Okay, so I had to write that down below because that was a very tough name to pronounce, and he is a phenomenal, psychologist and psychiatrist in the area of flow. So he's the one who really talked about the idea of flow. So if you are able to match your challenge with your skill levels and keep challenging yourself further, you start getting into a state of flow. And let me just illustrate that for you. So if you look at it, the challenge level, low to high, and then the skill level, low to high. If the challenge is low and the skill is low, you're apathy, you're like, big deal, I don't care much about it. If the challenge is medium, but the skill is low, then you start worrying. This is all emotions. Remember, I'm again talking about emotional intelligence. If the challenge is very high, but the skill is low, you start feeling anxious. If the skill is good, decent, but the challenge is low, you still boredom. So now you'll find some students who are bored easily, right? The skill is very high and the challenge is low. People are relaxing. They'll say, you know what, big deal. I'm just going to chill out and not do it much. Now, if your challenge is medium and the skill is high, you start getting into the control. So now I feel in control. Now I feel confident, right? And somewhere in between is arousal. Arousal is the challenge is high, but the skill is also medium. So you're starting to be challenged. So you feel much more activated. These are those times when you are given a nice problem, you do not know the solution, but you're really working hard and you're pushing yourself. But now there is this state of flow where you are actually challenged adequately along with your skill sets, and then you are lost in that state. So the question is, as academicians, how can we really create a state of flow for ourselves as learners and teachers, but also as imparters of knowledge and curiosity to our own students? So what is the state of flow? Again, if you really look at it, it's a mental state in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement and enjoyment. And each one of you will find a state of flow. Perhaps it's while singing, perhaps it's while dancing, perhaps it's while teaching, perhaps it's while drawing, or perhaps it's while doing your yoga or exercise. Finding that flow is extremely critical, right? And how do you define it? All the things which I said. It's completely involved. It's a sense of ecstasy, great inner clarity, a sense of serenity, timelessness. It's like, you just lose track of time. And then there's intrinsic motivation. It's not like your mother or father or teacher is saying, no, you have to do it for getting extra mark. No, this is driven by your inner passion to really excel. And that is what is critical. Okay. So again, flow. So the question which I'm going to leave you with is, as academicians, how do we get into a state of flow for ourselves? How many of you are in a state of flow while teaching? Or are you lacking zest and you're teaching the same old things, the same old way? Or let me try and see how I can actually energize myself and my students, challenge them with an interesting problem. And this is not just about doing well in exams, guys, because we've seen that just doing well in exams is good. It's important, but it's not the end all. It doesn't dictate life. So how do we enable our students to get into this state of flow? Again, a very critical question. So that is challenging yourself sufficiently and creating that skill and managing all these emotions which I talked about, right? All these emotions, the ability to manage and understand all these emotions of yourselves and your students, and helping them to get into this state of flow is what you need to look at. So again, I'm giving you a concept that you can think about, but I think I'm very energized by this aspect of it. And for me, as an example, I am in a state of flow when I am teaching, or when I am interacting with people, when I am coming up with solutions for life, right? Which is what I did, and Recently, I was in 5 countries, not before COVID and all these things. In 5 countries, over 4 weeks, I did almost about 40 workshops, right? In 5 different countries. And then I did really well. And somebody said, how did you do it? I said, man, I did not even realize that I did that because I was in a state of flow. It was almost in a meditative state where you bring yourself to that position. Okay. So challenge yourself to think of what does flow mean to you? How do you get it? How can you inspire flow in your students? So again, very important thing. First, we make our attitudes, then our attitudes make us. So again, re-energize ourselves, change who you are as a person, and that's what makes the difference. So let me just move on. Now, how do you actually bring it to practice now, right? All of this is good. I think there's a good concept, some of it which we know. But now, how do we actually work with it? So I'm going to get into every emotion, as I said, has a biological signature. There are hormones which are releasing us, and every hormone impacts our body, right? As you have seen even in 3 Idiots, it's all about the chemical loci. It's about the hormonal balances that you are creating. Nobody else is creating. You are creating, right? So there are happy hormones like the serotonin or dopamine or endorphins or oxytocin. Each one has a different impact. So the moment you change your emotion, your hormones change, and the moment your hormones change, your mood changes or your behavior changes. So being aware of your emotions is number one. Pausing yourself is the most important thing. So how do you really get into that state of being aware of who you are, right? We think we know who we are, but you will realize that the more you learn about yourself, you realize that the less you know about yourself. Now, this is the biggest, realization for me. And the realization comes from not just the conscious brain. Remember, the conscious brain is only a small bit. You have the entire subconscious brain, which is, which has all the elements of, we think that the conscious brain of logical thinking and other things are important, but the subconscious brain or the unconscious brain, which is your emotions, your values, your beliefs, right? Your intuitions, your behavior, your habits, all of these are sitting in your subconscious brain. How do you work with the subconscious brain to calm yourself? So one of the biggest techniques which I practice and which I've learned is meditation. And I'm just going to give you some data around it and we practice it as well. So can we do one thing now, all of us, right? Just take a few minutes to just calm yourself down, close your eyes, and then plant your feet on the ground. Just calm yourself. And then just let your natural rhythm take over. Just as you inhale, feel the cool air through the nostrils all the way to the top of your head. As you exhale, feel the cool air, warm air leaving your nostrils and feeling a little bit relaxed. As you inhale, just any emotions, thoughts do come, just be a silent spectator, don't get connected to it. And let your exhalations be a little longer than your inhalation. So if your inhalation is to the count of 1, 2, 3, your exhalation is to the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as you start calming down, right? Imagine a bright light, warm light from your third eye, your pineal gland, between your eyes, just entering your body, just covering your face and relaxing your entire chest, the rest of your body, with warmth, compassion, love, with awareness. With every exhalation, just release your negative energy. And as you start getting into the state of calmness, we're just going to chant the sound of the humming bee, which is from the stomach center, heart center, and the throat center, in the ratio of 1:2:3. As you get into this calm state, just remind yourself you're in a safe space and feel the vibrations through your body. And as you continue to close your eyes, just take both your palms together, rub your palms, and cup them over your eyes. And as and when you're ready, feel free to open up. And welcome back. So just to give you a sense of it, what we went through is a simple meditation technique, right, of calming and focusing on your breath. The more you meditate, you calm down. And the logic behind that is what I want to share. I'll be taking another 5-6 minutes to wrap up what I'm doing, and we'll wrap up with the questions. You have something known as the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body. It goes from the head, nose, throat, heart, and all through your GI pipe and connects to the different elements of the body. So it is the longest nerve in the body. And when you do the deep breathing, you're actually invoking the nerve, your nerve centers. Okay, there are 7 nerve centers in the body, also known as chakras, as some of you would know, and some of you practitioners. You're invoking it, and you're creating this parasympathetic relaxation process. The same thing when you chant the humming sound, you're actually invoking the vagus nerve. So it's absolutely amazing that our yogis or whoever it is have been able to, understand that there's something known as nerve centers which will calm you down, or chakras that will calm you down if you start doing meditation or chanting. And that is the whole scientific reason. Now people are able to find the scientific reasons of how you calm yourself. So when you're in a trying situation, let's say you're very angry, just take a few minutes to say, just let me calm down. Take a deep breath, calm myself down. And the more I start calming myself down and I am mindful and being present, I am able to relax. And that is one of the most important techniques. It is born in India. It is born in the guts of India, this meditation. But we have not practiced it. We have not taught it to our own, offspring. So the ways to improve the vagal tone, one is humming, speaking, right? The more you talk, you are invoking your vagus. Cold water. That's the reason. When you are, stressed, drink a little cold water. You automatically calm down. It goes down your vagus nerve. The deep breath, because most of the time our breath is only superficial. Now, when you do the deep breath, you're making vagus nerve. Yoga, meditation, and improving your gut health by having the right probiotics and other things like, having curds is really good. So that's an excellent one. So if you look at it, getting into the whole mindfulness state of being present when you have a trying situation and being emotionally intelligent about it, there's a lot of research, and this is the last few slides. Impact of meditation on the brain. This is the regular brain. This is an fMRI, functional magnetic resonance image of the brain. And this is of a Tibetan Buddhist. By the way, I work a lot with the Tibetan Buddhists in Dharamsala with His Holiness. They found that the more you do meditation, there's increased access to blood in the prefrontal cortex and in the emotional brain, and the pathways develop. So we're able to calm down. Automatically you calm down. And there's more research, right? This is about experienced meditators demonstrate decrease in the DMN. DMN is default mode network, the thing that you're doing when nothing is happening. 90% of the time when nothing is happening, we are either thinking about the past or worrying about the future. The whole idea of meditation is to calm your default and do nothing. And that is a state of literal being aware and being present. And you can see here, various research which talks about how the more you do meditation, you are able to calm your DMN, your default mode network. It slows aging, absolutely, with the control. As you look at it, the more you are able to meditate, it increases the gray matter. With meditation, the intensity of the gray matter increases. And similarly, other benefits of being more agile, being a lot more nimble with your thought process is what happens when you continue to do the meditation. Okay. And of course, the more you meditate, your ability to have positive emotions is much more higher compared to a control group of people where this thing was done. Okay. Now, bottom line, when you talk about emotional intelligence and empathy in life, one is how do you actually develop it, right? First is increasing the awareness of self. Understand yourself. Take a pen and paper and start writing, who am I? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How do I get triggered off? What throws me off the curve? What are the primary emotions that impact me? Is it anger? Is it fear? When I am teaching, ask yourself a question, which I'm going to ask you. What emotions do you teach with? Do you teach with anger, fear, stress, or are you teaching with a lot of love, empathy, and joy or zest? That is important. And for me, I'll tell you, most of the time when I am in that space, I am energized, I am zestful, I am humorous, I am connecting with the audience. That is what brings me. Next, meditation and mindfulness. As we saw the scientific and neuroscience research that is there, the more you meditate, the more you're able to calm yourself down. And meditation, like I said, it is not about just sitting in Om position. It could be painting, it could be drawing, it could be singing, right? And that's the reason why you find that there's so much of alternate treatment for people with mental ailments. They do more of singing, they more of dancing, they have drawings. And it's important. Responding, not reacting. When you have a challenging situation, don't react. Calm down. Sleep over it. Drink cold water. Ask them, what is it bothering you? Tell them. Whenever you're ready to talk, let's talk. Listening and understanding with an open mind. Because a lot of times, if you're not curious, we say, hey, I'm the teacher, I know all the answers, or I'm the elder one, so I know everything, or I have more degree. Then you're not listening. You're just talking over them. Inquiring and questioning, curiosity, like I said, building that curiosity is so critical. If there's one skill that you want to take back, I would say building curiosity, saying curious that I do not know everything, curious that somebody else has a different perspective that I would like to understand. And that requires humility and humbleness, right? Authentic dialogue, vulnerability, and opening up on things that are, and again, one of them is talk to your children about emotions. Say, hey, you know what? When you said this, I felt angry. Even naming the emotions are extremely critical, right? And sharing stories. Say, hey, you know what? When you did this, this is what happened. This is how I reacted. As a kid, this is how. So talk about your vulnerabilities, your stories, things that did not go well for you, because that builds character and strength for the kids as well and the students. And then sharing experiences. Don't ever think you know all the answers or just try to give advice. Just share experience. This is my experience. This is what I have learned so far, right? Just like we are all learning together today as well. I'm willing to stand corrected and I'm willing to learn more from each one of you, because you have so many more different experiences that I don't have. And that is the crux of life, okay? And then finally, I'm just going to leave you with one quick graphic here, something that I really love. Again, this is about, there's always a battle of two wolves inside us. One is evil. It is anger, jealousy, greed, resentment, lies, inferiority, and ego. The other is good. It is joy, peace, love, humility, hope, empathy, kindness, and truth, right? The wolf that wins is the one that you feed, right? If I am angry and continue to feed anger, that's exactly what I get. If I start feeding compassion, love, humility, that's what I become. And that's the reason why if somebody has very high IQ, what might end up happening is they might say, hey, I know all the answers in life. I can solve all the problems. And they might develop pride, ego, anger, or fear, versus saying, okay, you know what? I do not know all the answers. That's where humility comes in. That's where curiosity comes in. And say, let me understand and learn a little bit more. And you find that in your gurus or anybody, the best teachers are those who are humble and say, I do not know. Let me think about it. Let me come back to you. It's a very interesting perspective that you share that I do not know. So humility is also a very critical aspect. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop my sharing, and perhaps we'll take a few more questions, and then we will continue with other things that people might have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Before going to the questionnaire, friends, kindly note, link to download e-certificate will be provided in chat group at the end of the session, followed by feedback form. Kindly fill it before leaving. It will be active only for short time, and download your e-certificate. If you have any problem, you can always ask us in the WhatsApp group. Nearly every great discovery in science has come as the result of providing a new question rather than a new answer. Now it's the time to move to questionnaire. The very first question which has come is how to measure EQ, sir?
Oh, see, the thing is, like I was saying, there's now EQ is no longer an art. It has become a science because we're able to measure activity in the brain. So there are a lot of tests or instruments available out there on EQ. Daniel Goleman has some very good EQ scoring. So I would just recommend on those 5 parameters of self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation. There are questionnaires that you can fill out, and then you can rate yourself. So it is available online, but just go through a trusted source.
How can we stay mentally strong?
How can you
be mentally strong? There are sometimes we become emotional and we become vulnerable. So how can we be strong all the time? That's the next question they have.
And the question here is, and I mentioned one very interesting word, vulnerability. Vulnerability is opening up your mask and saying, hey, I have faults, or things are not necessarily always right for me, right? Our imperfections complete us, okay? So we don't have to be strong all the time. If you are strong, you are always putting a mask. We are not human. I would say, yeah, if you are in a trying situation, calm yourself through meditation, through understanding the situation a little bit more, using your thinking brain, talking to a few people, right? And, practicing this whole deep breathing techniques, which I talked about. Very, very powerful. They do help. But at the same time, you will become stronger if you share your vulnerabilities with people. If I have an issue, I might say, hey, you know what, Rashmiji, these are my challenges. I want to share with you. And it's not that I'm looking for an answer, but the more you share, the less burden you feel, and automatically you can connect. And you are human, and that is what matters. So apart from those techniques, I would say share your vulnerabilities in a safe space with your close people. It's absolutely fine, including your children. Yeah.
Many of our friends' children are entering teenage. So how to deal with them?
I'll tell you what I did. For me, when they were younger, like 11, 12, 13, until then I was a father to them, okay, and a director. From 12, 13 onwards, when until 20, I've become a friend to them. I'm a friend to them, but I give them tough love, by the way. Tough love is, it's not like only giving love and saying, hey, you want chocolate, do this, do that. I also, when there is a need to be strict with them, I do that. But sharing experiences, which is what I said, giving them love, tough love, being a friend is very critical, because if you do not understand it, they'll say, hey, you know what, here you go, dad is going off on, or mom is going off in their own banter. Because when we're doing that, we are not thinking, we are emotionally hijacked. Our love, our anger, our insecurities literally are projected onto them. And then we literally smother them. We say, hey, you are a teacher's son, so you have to do very well in studies. We get into all this mode. It doesn't have to be. Each one has their own trajectory. Relax. Life is not just about getting first rank. Life is about having a happy life. Happy life can make all the difference. And if my recommendation, which I am doing with my daughters, so I told one is a doctor and the other is an architect. They are not great students, but they are good human beings. I'm happy with that. And then as they go through, they start developing their own energy. And I'll just leave you with one more thought on this part. If an egg is broken from outside, you take life. If an egg is broken from inside, you give life. So if change has to occur in a human being, it has to come from within. You can only be a channel. You can only be an inspirator. You can only provide the motivation, but it has to come from them. And as teachers, you all know that. Yeah.
Can sports help in developing EI?
Very good question. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm a sports person. I compete now also in the national sports. I do triple jump, hop, step and jump, and long jump and other things. I'll tell you, the best thing, and I went to public school, Ramantapur, and the best that this school has given me is sports. I was very average in studies, but what I learned on the sports field is what I use today. That is my EQ skills. One, failure, how to deal with failure. Because life is not always about success. Second, when you fall down and get hurt, how do you go back? When your chips are down, how do you learn? Each one of this is EQ skills. Team skills, leadership on the field. That is what you find that sports are the best. So I would encourage for all of you, have your children play team sports, not just individual sports. Individual sports are good to nourish and polish the brain, the IQ, but not chess and stuff, which is good, but team sports, which are extremely important. And I highly encourage, and a very good question. Yeah.
In 45 minutes class, how can a teacher have EI and teach effectively? And how can she connect to all the students emotionally?
Yeah, in 45 minutes, the first thing is, if what I do, first lower your pride and ego and that you know everything. How you walk into the class is important. And like I said, I gave you 2 clues. Having the zest and humor are very important. I'm not saying that, you start being only funny and humorous and not give the answers. Yes, you do that. Get people excited with what they're doing. Get them into a state of flow. You saw that, Mihai's, flow status. How do you get them into a state of flow? It is by exciting them, by challenging them. Hey guys, I have an interesting challenge for you today. Come, let's sit down and talk. Become a friend to them, but maintain your boundary. It's important because sometimes some teachers are too friendly and then the kids start taking them for granted. So I keep saying, even in parenting, you be friendly, but have the boundaries defined very clearly. That's how you have to balance between being demanding, but also being responsive to the student. So understand their emotions. If you find, and then what I do is I always maintain eye contact, walking around. If we were doing this live, I would be walking around and meeting everybody and I would connect with everybody. Looking at people's eyes. How many of us look at people's eyes and connect with them? Because your eyes are your soul to your, there's a window to your soul. So connect with them at that level and say, hey, is everything okay? Is there something that we can talk about? That's important.
Nowadays, students are always with electronic gadgets, sir. So how is it impacting EQ and how can they overcome stress?
Yeah. So it is not just student. I think all the teachers and even, all of us are doing that. So the thing here is the moment we get into a gadget, we are replacing the, team time or interaction time with FaceTime, which we all know. FaceTime is electronic gadget time. And that is it's very poor and bad for emotional intelligence because then I know how to play well in a whatever those games are, right? PUBG or whatever it is, but I'm on TikTok, but I have no social skills. So the thing here is, with my daughters as well, I tried it out. I'm not completely successful. Where I said, use it, but be mindful of it. So my daughter, what she does every time she has an exam, she says, "Dad, this is my phone. Take it," and she has that self-regulation ability. So I give them the leeway because if I can just take them away, you know what I mean? I can take them away, and it happened with my daughter. I took it away. And before I know, I found that she had 3 other cell phones because her friends brought her one, or somebody. So people will do what they want to do. The question is having that dialogue and being open with them and saying, hey, what? Can we have at least during dinner table, during this one, there's no cell phone time. And slowly they start changing. And at the end, kids do not what we tell them. Kids do what we do. So simple. If you have to change them, you have to change us. Is what I believe. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. There are almost more than 50 queries. I will post them in our group. You can answer them later.
Okay.
So coming to the end of our session, I now express our deep sense of gratitude towards our esteemed speaker. Today, we have been fortunate to have eminent resource person, Mr. Sanjay Upendram. The lecture delivered by sir was really interesting. It has been our pleasure to host all the elite participants of FDP of Little Flower Degree College. The participants were very enthusiastic, and I'm thankful to all the participants for joining us to attend this faculty development program on emotional quotient, a key to success in life. I sincerely thank our college management, principal, vice principal for encouraging us and giving us support for conducting this event. I also thank our staff, faculty, and students of LFDC for the kind help and cooperation in every aspect. A special thanks to Mr. Vijay Reddy and Mr. R.K. Raman, faculty from Department of Computer Science, for giving us their precious time and technical help. I extend my special thanks to my student Manish for his valuable help throughout the event. On our part, we have also made sincere effort to enhance the quality of today's webinar. On behalf of the Department of Chemistry, I once again thank everyone whose contribution has made this national level faculty development program a grand success. The ultimate test of man's conscience may be his willingness to sacrifice something today for future generation whose words of thanks will not be heard. With these words, I sign off for today. Thank you, one and all. Stay home, stay safe, and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful life. Enjoy. And thank you, Rashmi and Gomti ma'am and the whole coordinators for doing this. Thank you. Okay.